Hey y'all, Coach in the Fight here, talking about the 144,000, talking about who they are, particularly some of the traits that you will use or that you can use to identify the 144,000. Before I jump into this, I want to promote my channel and the videos that we produce over here at Hermas Academy. I've found that when I include the word or the phrase or the numbers 144,000 in our videos, in the title of those videos, we tend to get a lot more hits. But I don't like doing that too often because it kind of feels like I'm trying to, get views on my videos by putting those in the title. But the thing about it, just about every video that we put out at Hermas Academy is directly for the 144,000. You guys, those guys are able to go in and extract information from those videos, even if we don't include 144,000 in the title. Let me show you what I mean. Over here on the channel, looking at the videos. Now, down here are the popular uploads, the videos that, the guys like to take a look at. You got the Apocalypse of Elijah, which is probably the most popular video on our channel. Then you got the 144,000 will be instructors. Some of you guys may have seen that. And then the 144,000 are being changed and raptured, and then purifying 144,000. Which is a thing we did about, the trials and tribulations that these guys go through. Again, these are the most popular videos on our channel, but you see that they all have the word 144,000 in it, talking about how they've already been raptured. If you understand Revelations 12, you know what I'm talking about. There was a warning that we gave to these guys, and then you got this one, who are the 144,000. The video after video, if you look at the most popular videos on our channel, with the exception of probably this one right here. Yep, it has the word 144,000 in it too. And then when you come up here and look at the current videos, we don't include 144,000 in all of our titles. Like you look at the ones that's up here now, we just posted this video talking about the coronavirus. Well, I don't have the word 144,000 in the title of that video, but is this video pertinent to the guys of the 144,000? Definitely. It's talking about how these guys will be used by our Father in order to curtail a lot of these end time viruses and epidemics that will be taking place. This one over here talking about the third temple. Absolutely, the third temple is important to the members of the 144,000. That's who will make up the third temple, are those guys that are in there. Coming over here, looking at the struggle against spiritualism. Again, this one doesn't include the 144,000, but it is extremely important to those guys because they are working to become spiritualized. That will be one of the things that, will set them apart, is they will be of the first people on the planet that will become spiritualized beings. And then, of course, they will come back and teach the rest of us. This one over here does include the word 144,000, but it was late in there. I kind of snuck it in at the end of the title, but it's talking about forgiveness. And again, forgiveness is important to the 144,000. Now, let's keep running through these just for grins and giggles. This one talking about Passover, the first commandment. To the children of Israel, as we recognize the 144,000 or the reincarnated spirits of the children of Israel. Passover being a very important feast, this is directly talking to those guys. But like I said, I don't like to just include the word 144,000 in the title because it feels like I'm doing so just to get hits, like I did over in this video talking about the tribulation covenant for the 144,000 elect chosen. Yeah, I did that. I put that in there just to see if I can get those guys to watch that video. But you look at over this one talking about the new moon report for February and March. It's important for those guys to understand when the new moon is because those guys are keeping the Sabbath day, and a lot of them understand the importance of keeping the Sabbath day on a correct day, how the temple is open and all of that kind of stuff. So that information is really important to them. And then we have a couple of more. This one came out of the Third Testament of the Bible, and it was directly, towards those guys was, talking about how they will suffer misery and illnesses and slander and such. So I included that one right up front, and we got a little bit more hits than the rest of them. But then this last one talking about the resurrection of the flesh, it does not include the 144,000, so it didn't get quite as many hits. But it is very important for the members of the 144,000 as they learn to take advantage of their reincarnation. So my point is that, check our channel. Just because the word 144,000 is not listed in the title doesn't mean that it's not important. It doesn't mean that the video is unimportant and that you shouldn't be checking it out. You should be checking it out just about every video that we put out, because every one of them is extremely important for the learning of the members of the 144,000 as they're in the wilderness learning different traits. We're going to jump over here to the King James Version. We're going to talk about the elect, as you see in the King James Version, because that's who the 144,000 are. There's a lot of people who don't understand that the 144,000 is the mentioning of the 144,000 or mentioned all throughout the scripture, because there's only in the book of Revelation does it talk directly and use the word 144,000. But whenever you see the word elect throughout the Bible, that's who it's talking about. Whenever it talks about the ones who are called in the Bible, that is who it's talking about. It's talking about the 144,000. But let me show you something right quick, just for the intellectuals out there. This is coming from the second general epistle of Peter, and we're talking about the elect. See, to understand, the 144,000, what you have to understand is they are the ones who are chosen out of the called. All of spiritual Israel have a calling on their life. They all, and that's what, many people are feeling. That's why a lot of people, think that they are the 144,000. It's because they feel this calling on their life, and it is a legitimate calling. They're all called to be members of the 144,000. The difference between those guys, the chosen elect, is though they have actually completed their trials, they've been purified, they've gained all of their spiritual maturity. By the time we get to what it talks about over there in Revelations chapter 12 verse 6, they've gone through the wilderness period and they have emerged out of the end. But there's a lot of us that have this calling on our life, and it is up to us as individuals to do what it's talking about here in the epistle of Peter, where it says to make our calling and election sure. Look right here, it says, wherefore rather, brethren, give diligence to make your calling and election sure, meaning there's actually some work that we have to do in order to change our calling into an election. Like I said, there's many people that are called, like the Messiah told us, there are many called and there are few chosen. That's another word we could use to find the elect in the Bible. If we look for chosen, there are many called and there are few that are chosen. And that's what it's talking about over here, how we have to make our calling and election sure. We don't want to be of those who are called but are not chosen. If you think about the parable that the Messiah, told him about the 10 virgins over there, all of the people that are called would be among those who are of the 10 virgins. But those who are elected will be the wise ones, the 5 wise ones of the 10 virgins over there. They're the ones who had the oil, and that is what the called individuals are doing in the wilderness now. They are now regaining this oil. So when the bridegroom comes and we're ready to go into the marriage supper, we will have that oil and we won't have to go back like the unwise virgins and get that oil. So we have to make sure that our calling is an election sure. All right, just want to bring that out. Let me jump back over here to the, I think this is over here in the book of Mark, talking about the elect and who they are. Like I said, if you want to find the 144,000 in the King James Version, look for words like elect, look for chosen. the word bride. Anytime it talks about the word bride of Christ, you're talking about the 144,000. And there may be a few other words. But let's look right here in the book of Mark, down here in chapter 20, when the Messiah is telling them what to expect in the end times. And he starts to talk about the elect down there. Verse 20 says, "And except that the Lord has shortened those days, no flesh should be saved. But for the elect's sake, whom he has chosen, he has shortened those days." Talking about the afflictions that humanity has to go through. Verse 19 talks about it. It shall be an affliction such as was not from the beginning of the creation, which God created at this time. We're talking about the tribulation and the severity of the tribulation that we're starting to see the early parts of, or the leading up to. But it says how severe these times are, but the days are shortened for the elect's sake. Talking about is how the Father is going to step in and, for the elect's sake, and kind of curb some of this stuff is going on. Otherwise, everybody would die. See, it's important to understand about the 144,000 is these are the individuals that survived the tribulation. Now, there may be others who survived the tribulation, especially those who embrace the ideals or the teachings of the 144,000. They may survive, some of those individuals may survive the tribulation as well. And I think when you count the 144,000, you're not really counting the spouses and the children of those individuals. So I believe there will be more than 144,000 people on the planet. But those that survive, those, who emerge from the other side of the tribulation, will be centered around those elect, those chosen, those individuals that actually made it through. If you look down there at verse 22, it talks about how they're going to be false Christs and false prophets. What this is talking about is how when we come into the age of spiritualism and people start to recognize our spiritual gifts. You can see on our channel how we teach people, how we have the ability to control, weather, how we have the ability to control other elements and different stuff. Those are what now humanity considers superpowers, and so that's what it's talking about, how these individuals are going to show signs and show wonders. Well, when we see these individuals who are spiritualized start to do stuff like curbing hurricanes with their thoughts and with their prayers and all of that, it's going to seduce a lot of people. And he says, if it were possible, even the elect. So you're going to have individuals who are going, because all of humanity has these powers now, they just don't know how to take advantage of them. They don't know how to control their thoughts, and they don't even know how to pray properly, believe it or not. But but all of humanity has these powers now, and not all of them are good. Not all of the people who have these powers are good. So some of them will be using them for bad, and there will be false prophets who will be using these powers to seduce humanity. And what it's saying here is they will seduce almost the elect. Even if it were possible, they will seduce the elect as well. But the Father will prevent them from actually being seduced. And the way he will do that is by his word. He tells us not to. The second commandment talks about images and all of that. So as a lot of people, jump on YouTube and they start to view these people calling themselves prophets, this and 144,000 that, they quickly recognize that these individuals are breaking the second commandment. It's like, how are you 144,000 and you don't know that you ain't supposed to have your picture of your face up on the screen? Am I really supposed to trust you? So the true members of the 144,000 are not going to be so quickly tricked as the rest of humanity is. The rest of humanity are going to go for these false prophets, who are, using their image in order to gain a lot of views and a lot of subscribers and all of that kind of stuff. I'm not jealous. It just sounds like it. I can't use my image over here. Sometimes I wish I could, but I know I get my hand slapped, and I'm not really willing to suffer all of the pain and punishments that I will get from displaying my ugly mug up on your video screen. I don't care how many views I get. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to obey the second commandment and all of the other commandments. But jumping back on here, Looking at verse 27, he says, and then shall he send his angels, and shall gather together his elect from the four winds and from the uttermost part of the earth and to the uttermost part of heaven. I wanted to bring this verse out because of the chronology of the thing. There's a lot of people who talk about the rapture this, and they talk about the rapture that, how the chosen elect are going to be called away and taken away and going to survive. Well, okay, well, look down here at verse 27. And if you look at the chronology of the thing, you already have the Son of Man appearing on the clouds up there in verse 26. You already have the tribulation there in verse 24, as well as the sun darkened and the moon not giving her light there in verse 24. And then down there in 25, you have the stars falling from heaven, which, sounds like a meteor shower. And then the powers of the heaven will be shaken, which is, talking about that huge global earthquake that we're waiting for. All of those happen before the elect are gathered together. Notice that all of those things happen first, but that's just a side note, talking about the chronology, how those things happen before the elect are caught together from the four winds over there. All right, now you stay with me that long. Praise the Father in heaven. Now I want to get into the meat of this video. For those members who are trying to identify these guys, these are some of the traits you'll look for. For those members who believe they are 144,000, well, this is, if you want to see if you are, you should have these traits right here, talking about the traits of the elect. Those members who feel the calling on their life and they're out here working to make their calling and election sure. They're in the wilderness learning these traits. Well, these are the things that they're learning here. Looking at the epistle of Paul, the apostle to the Colossians, the New Testament book of Colossians, we're going to look at the traits of the 144,000. Jump it down here in verse 12 of chapter 3. These are the traits that the 144,000 will have. So let's take these pretty slowly. Looking at verse 12 of chapter 3, it says, put on therefore as the elect of God, holy and beloved, bowls of mercy, kindness, humbleness of mind, meekness, and long suffering. Talking about the elect of God, talking about the 144,000. These are some of the traits that they will have. These are some of the traits that you must have if you are working, making your calling, and election sure. These are some of the things that you're learning. If you are not learning these things right here, I promise you, you are having a hard time about it. Things are going pretty rough for you and those individuals around you. So let's take this a little slow. He says, the elect of God, holy and beloved. We understand the word holy to mean separated. He says, bowels of mercy, meaning your mercies run through your guts. Your guts are full of mercies, full of kindness, humbleness of mind, meekness, and long suffering. These are the traits that you have to have in order to survive the tribulation. It's what it's going to take. Mercy for our brother, kindness for one another, humbleness of mind. The arrogant, people that are arrogant are not going to make it through the tribulation, guys. They're just not going to make it. Meekness, that has something to do with humbleness and long suffering. Now, if my wife was here, she oftentimes studies with me, and she likes to pull out a dictionary and try to look at these words. I a lot of times just like to hit the synonym. Long suffering, we're talking about forgiving, resigned, tolerant, or accommodating, patient, selfless, or with an antonym of intolerant. So, being long suffering with each other is being patient with each other. Meekness, the synonym says humbleness, quietness, docility, gentleness, humility, modesty, mildness, or timidity. And so we have to be meek. Those individuals who are the 144,000 will be meek. He says humbleness of mind. So they're not going to be arrogant. This is being humble. Humbleness is talking about humility, modesty, meekness, shyness, self-effacement, or unpretentiousness with an antonym of arrogant. Those individuals are not going to be arrogant at all. They're going to be kind individuals. They're going to have compassion and sympathy, gentleness, kind-heartedness, benevolence, thoughtfulness, and humanity. Those are the traits of the 144,000. So you say, who are the 144,000? These are these individuals that will have these type of traits. You're reading it right over here in the King James Version. A lot of the classes we give are out of the Third Testament of the Bible, which has whole sections, maybe even whole chapters that cover, the 144,000 and who they are. But, this is where our roots is over here in the King James Version. And so I wanted to bring this out, is that these guys are covered over here in the King James Version as well. It says bowels of mercies, as compassions, pities, clemencies, kindnesses, sympathies, humanities, understandings, and generosities. It ought to be painting a picture on who these guys are. They're not going around judging people. They're not going around being arrogant and haughty. You won't hear them standing up too quickly and talking about, I'm 144,000 and I'm a prophet and I'm a disciple and I'm a this and I'm a that. Those are not the traits of the 144,000. These guys are meek. These guys are humble. And that's what they're learning out here in this wilderness. You look at verse 14, and above all these things put on charity, which is the bond of perfectness. All right, so this charity that they're talking about is love for our brother. It says aid, help, assistance, contributions, gifts, donations, offerings, and handouts. Those are some of the synonyms for the word charity. This is how you're going to recognize the true 144,000. Like I said, there are some fake ones out there. You will not know who the 144,000 is until they emerge from the other side. Like it says over there in Revelations chapter 12, it talks about how the bride is gone into the wilderness, but then 144,000 come out of the wilderness. So to me, like the Messiah said, there are many called and few chosen. So there's a lot of individuals who are going into this wilderness period and this learning period, but there's only going to be 144,000 that emerge on the other side, and they're going to emerge with these characteristics. Like they say, charity, that's love for your brother, which is the bond of perfectness. Going on, it says, and let the peace of God rule in your heart, to the which also ye are called in one body, and be ye thankful. So these guys are going to be peaceful individuals. They're not going to be warlords. They're not going to use the might of their hands in order to fight one another. They're going to use stuff like their mind. They're going to use stuff like charity. They're going to use stuff like prayer as their number one weapon as they start to combat evil in this end times. They're going to use prayer, not their fists, not their guns or some materialistic sword. They're going to use stuff like prayer. They're going to use stuff like thoughts. They're going to use stuff like good deeds and charity and stuff. Verse 3:16, chapter 3, verse 16 says, let the word of Christ dwell in you richly in all wisdom, teaching and admonishing one another in psalms and hymns and spiritual songs, singing with grace in your heart and to the Lord. So this is what these guys will be doing. If the individual that you're looking at over there, you watching this channel, he's telling you he's 144,000 this, he's 144,000 that. If the humility part, if his arrogant part didn't throw you off, these are some of the things you should be looking for. Richly in wisdom, teaching and admonishing one another in psalms and hymns and spiritual songs. Is he doing that over there? That should help you to understand if who you're looking at is true 144,000, or if he if he's one of the true guys that's going to emerge as the 144,000, I should say, or is he going to be one of these Judas type spirits doing all of these signs and wonders in order to fool humanity, basically building on their materialism and such. The last verse we'll talk about here, it says, and whatsoever you do in word and deed, do all in the name of the Lord Jesus, giving thanks to God and the Father by him. All right, guys, we're going to go ahead and wrap this up here. Hope you got something out of it. Again, jump over there and check out our channel. I thought about changing the name to Hermas Academy at one time, but I think I'm going to leave it as Coach in the Fight. When you're looking over at our channel, scroll down here to this section called Playlists that you should watch. This is one good playlist that you can listen to about what it says, purification of the world and humanity in the judgment. This talks a lot about what the world's going to go through. It's a lot more detail on the tribulation. It goes in detail about wars and pestilences and, you know, a lot of stuff over there. But these right here, guys, I'm going to say these right here are the most important videos that you could watch on our channel or anywhere in the world. You know, other than the scripture itself, you can get a link to the book called The Shepherd of Hermas down there in the description, an audio book or a PDF version if you want to read it. But, you know, we give classes on The Shepherd of Hermas, and this over here, the similitudes classes, that's some deep stuff. It tells you how these 144,000 are going to emerge, what they're going to go through, what's going to happen to them in as they are out there in the wilderness period. It's called similitudes because it puts it in the form of a parable, helps us to get an understanding of it, you know. And then these over here talking about the commands and updates. That's extremely important stuff for us to learn here going forward. Talks about stuff like anger and long suffering and humility, and even identifies false prophets and all of that kind of stuff. It's extremely important stuff that you can see over there on our channel. All right, I'm going to wrap it up there. If you got anything out of it, hit the like button. If you didn't, hit the dislike button, but leave a comment either way. And shalom.